And you guys record this as well, right?
Yes, and it will be
Yeah.
uploaded on YouTube just for anyone who is not able to join this webinar in live so that they can watch later.
Yeah, no. We have a lot of people that viewing it later. So in that sense, it's really a valuable resource.
Absolutely. Okay, so we are live. So Nilotpal and Vaishali, please go ahead, starting this webinar.
Thank you so much, Rohit. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, based on wherever you are attending this from different parts of the world. My name is Nilotpal, and we are here for SciROI Global's focused webinar series 2025 on the topic Mechanics, the foundation to various engineering departments and its future prospects in India. I would like to welcome all our participants for attending the webinar and wholeheartedly thank all our esteemed speakers and panelists for accepting our invitation to join us here today. I will introduce myself again. I am Nilotpal. I am currently a fourth-year PhD student at Virginia Tech, USA. And am an active volunteer member at SciROI Global Leadership Team. Today in this webinar, we'll learn from leading experts in the field from premier institutions about this particular topic, gain insights about the current trends and the research progress in this topic. And we also have a session where we would engage in meaningful discussion with the speakers in a separate Q&A session that would come at the end. Today, I am joined by three other volunteers, Rohit, Kanchana, and Vaishali, and I would like each of them to introduce themselves.
Sorry, I
Rohit,
was
you're
muted.
muted.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. I am Rohit Sinha. I am a final year PhD student in the Engineering Mechanics program at Virginia Tech.
Hi everyone, I'm Kanchana Devanathan. I'm a postdoctoral researcher in Vanderbilt University in USA. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Nilotpal, Rohit, and Kanchana. Hello, everyone. I'm Vaishali Agarwal. I'm an ex-postdoc fellow at University of Pittsburgh and currently an active volunteer at SciROI. So we welcome you all. And as many of you already know, that SciROI is a volunteer-driven non-profit organization that was founded by Professor Aseem Ansari and WinStep Forward in 2015 with a mission to create awareness and aid in smooth transition of the Indian STEM diaspora back to India. Over the last few years, SciROI has provided an immense platform for promoting multi-level collaborative initiatives between individuals and agencies in India and abroad, facilitating the pursuit of STEM career in India through our annual events, recruitment drives, focused webinars, blogs, and newsletters of few of the activities from SciROI platform, highlighting the diverse prospects in India. To know more about the SciROI initiatives and the past activities, we would present a short video. With no further delay, we would start today's webinar with a brief 5-minute welcome address by Dr. Professor Aseem Ansari. Professor Aseem, please.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be speaking at this. Every year, I see the advance that the volunteers are making. So one thing I'd like to say is that what you're seeing in front of you and what has come to be is purely driven by the energy and enthusiasm and the vision of the volunteers. When we started out, it was one postdoc who asked, how do we find out what is going on in India, what's the landscape, and how might we contribute, either by returning or through an organization that is anchored abroad. Okay. I think we are going to be sharing the mic, but that's all right. I would like to thank everyone, all the volunteers over the years. We have a system where we engage, educate, and empower people who are interested in a career, either it's academic or non-academic, entrepreneurial, or in any direction. Return of talent to India or engagement in a way, building bridges between communities in the US or the globe these days. We've reached out, the volunteers have been able to engage Europe and other parts of the world with India and try to find ways to build bridges, build capabilities, build capacity, and imagine new futures. So this is now entirely driven by people like Kanchana, Rohit, and Nilotpal who are here, but there's a larger team. So the next slide, I presume, will have the full leadership team, I believe, that is involved in creating all these different facets and an annual event, both in Europe and in DC this year. To invite you all to come to that in person and more personally engage in the opportunities. Today's panel, I would like to thank the panel for taking the time. I know it's late in India, for taking the time to let us know or educate us in what's going on in India, what you guys imagine the future to be, so that the people on this end who are interested can, can I have the slide for, thank you. So these are the people I'd like to thank, right? Sorry to skip back, but I wanted to make sure that people saw the drivers of this organization. Here they are. And this was last year. And the plan is that every 3 years, we go through, bring in new partners. Not every year we bring in, but the tenure for each one of these leadership members, council members, is 3 years. So that first year, they learn how the program works. Second year, they engage in bringing new programs online. And third year, they transfer that knowledge to the next generation, essentially. So constant engagement across every year keeps this organization constantly moving in new directions, being agile, finding new opportunities. And today's session is an example of that. So in response to the needs, both here and in India, of engaging engineers and physical scientists, they've created today's webinar, which promises to be quite exciting. It's an area that is actually difficult to recruit people to in India, in engineering. So we're exploring new possibilities. So if you understand what the opportunities are in India, this group here will make it available to a very large group of members, people who are subscribing to SciROI, about, I think it's a couple thousand, if not more. And we can imagine new ways of engaging. It doesn't have to be the old model where people go back and have to develop a career there, but it could be that, but it could be more. And this is now just limited by our imagination and our willingness and our boldness to be able to bring new modalities to enable and work across borders, across time. With that, I would like to go to the next slide, if possible. There we go. And this is this year's group. And some of them you can see out here. You can see Vaishali, you can see Kanchana, you can see Nilotpal and Rohit. They are driving today's session. But broadly, this entire team works every weekend they meet to try and describe, discuss, identify new ways to connect India with the world. And with that, I'd like to thank the team and now go to the speakers and thank the speakers. As I was saying earlier, that I know it's late in India, and I'm so glad that you are willing to spare your time, your knowledge, and your insights with a group of students and postdocs and young professionals who are exploring ways to engage and contribute back. In addition, I would like to remind everybody that we are having in-person events, and including today's speakers. I would like to invite you to come to this event either in DC or Vienna. Hopefully some of these dates match with your travel times. If not, if you can accommodate us, we'd love to have you come visit us here and meet aspirants and young bright sparks like the ones that are organizing today's session in person. The impact is immense, and serendipitous opportunities arise that you wouldn't have sometimes if you don't meet face to face. So these are the two annual events. We have these every year. This would be the 10th year that we'll be doing this. And I invite everybody to come to this. With this, I'll stop and thank the audience as well for joining in, and the future audience. This is the power of saving this and putting it on YouTube. We get a lot of people visiting the site and listening to these talks subsequently. So this is a living document, and information that comes back, we act on it. And SciROI team actually decides on how to develop new opportunities based on that. So thank you, everybody. And I look forward to today's session, learning from you guys. With that, I turn it back to you, Nilotpal or Kanchana, who's handling it next? Or is it Rohit?
Thank you so much, Dr. Ansari, for such an inspiring introduction and for your leadership to the SciROI team. So without any further delay, I would like to remind all of our audience today about some Zoom etiquettes. So first, please keep yourself muted throughout the webinar, unless we have the Q&A session at the end. And if you have any questions after our speaker's talk, post your questions in the chat box. We'll try to accommodate as many of them as possible at the end. And while you are asking a question at the end, please keep your video on for better interaction. So before moving on to our esteemed speakers, we would like to share the diversity of our audience here today. So we have a strong representation from the engineering and physical sciences, as well as especially like engineering, physics and chemistry. And if you look at the education level, we have people from different education levels, but one thing that stands out here is the percentage of undergrads here who are the future researchers of our country. So really happy to see that. So without further ado, we would move on to our speakers talk today. So we had 4 speakers with us today, but unfortunately, one of them, Dr. Chakraborty, had a last-minute emergency and he could not be here with us today. Bearing him, we would have the talks lined up in the manner that you see in the slide from left to the right. And I would like to hand the baton to Vaishali to start with our first speaker.
Thank you, Nilotpal. We would welcome our speakers today, and it would be wonderful to start our webinar with Dr. Prasad Patnaik from IIT Madras, who would be the first speaker for the day, who is currently professor in the Department of Applied Mechanics and Biomedical Engineering at IIT Madras. He is the professor in charge of Fluid Mechanics Laboratory. His research interests are application of CFD tools for fluid structure interaction and heat transfer, modeling clinical challenges, such as single ventricle physiology and design of percutaneous VAD, along with design of membrane oxygenators and clot retrievers, etc. We would welcome Dr. Patnaik to share his thoughts on the topic, please. Dr. Patnaik.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which part of the world you are. I guess most of you are from the West, so from America or possibly Europe and a few of the Asian countries. So in 1947, all of we got freedom, and one of the concerns at that point for the country was how to make the country literate at a large scale. Most of the country was not fully literate. So at that point of time, the thinking was, what exactly we mean by literate. Reading, writing, arithmetic was really part and parcel of being, literate. But now you add digital literacy as part and parcel of being literate. So it's extremely important. Most of India, I'm not sure to what extent digital devices in terms of banking transactions, in terms of the day-to-day transaction have percolated into your life in the US, but in India, it has extensively percolated. Even beggars are putting one small, digital transaction QR code so that you can you can pay. Railway staff are doing that while going on the train and so on. Keeping that aside, the fact that digital literacy is extremely important also implies computing has become pervasive indirectly or directly. The necessary progress required in the context of banking, insurance, related to all the support systems in terms of making especially India corruption-free, etc., to a large extent indirectly helps us to sort of focus on computing in a big way. Then comes the science and engineering side of these technologies related to computing. As all of you know, we as engineers, mostly I come from a mechanical engineering background. So in that spirit, I'll try to focus more on a little bit of applied mathematics, engineering side of issues. If you are familiar with engineering analysis and designs, in general, there are three broad categories of design are on what engineering analysis and design hinges. We do experiments and then we essentially extrapolate those ideas in terms of empirical correlations to sort of develop prototype designs, real designs, and so on. We can also do mathematical models, simplified analytical tools, and then perhaps use closed form solutions. But again, there are limitations to such approaches, as all of you know. In the field of fluid mechanics, it took a long time to understand the influence of the viscous influences very close to the wall boundaries, and ignoring viscosity at high Reynolds numbers was not a solution. In that spirit of the issues, closed form solutions with regular geometries and simplified boundary conditions, etc., have their own limitations, so therefore hardly pursued. So then comes the third paradigm, which is the computational engineering side of the issues, where the engineering analysis and design in any branch of even scientific discovery, the computational science has really percolated in a big way, and it is pervasive. In that sense, the field of scientific computing has its roots in every branch of science and engineering. The three roots to scientific discovery are not just experiments, theory, which was the case prior to large scale computing is part and parcel of our own human endeavor. Now that computing is extensively pervasive, people are including additionally data science, machine learning related approaches, and one can clearly see the confluence of theory, experiments, and computing, maybe in some cases reinforcing each other, and then scientific discoveries plus the engineering designs, failure analysis, etc., are really part and parcel of the story. But then coming back to engineering as a whole, specific to mechanics, mechanics, of course, is in a very strict sense, is the paradise of mathematical sciences. You can enjoy the fruits of mathematical sciences through mechanics. In that spirit, certainly mechanics is the prime mover for every branch of engineering, I can tell you. Whether it is visible form or not really visible form. Fortunately, we are one of those only two IITs, IIT Madras and IIT Delhi are the two IITs where applied mechanics departments are really, there for a long time, since inception, essentially. We have recently renamed our department to make sure the representation of one of our groups is well received. We call our department now as Applied Mechanics and Biomedical Engineering. The good news is that from this year, July onwards, we have started 2 brand new BTech programs. One of them is in computational engineering and mechanics, CEM. By the way, the opening and closing ranks in JEE Advanced is much superior, although we are introducing the BTech program for the first time. The closing rank, I'm sure you are familiar with JEE Advanced, which is essentially the admission process happens through that for all IITs. And JEE Mains is for all NITs and the triple ITs, some of the triple ITs. So we essentially had a much better, closing rank. I'm referring to the general category compared to mechanical. We were closing pretty close to electrical engineering. In that spirit, the confluence of computing and mechanics is going to be really the prime mover. Even the biomedical engineering program, BTech program that we introduced is something called instrumentation and biomedical engineering. Please notice we have started 2 brand new BTech programs, 2 brand new departments in IIT Madras. I'm sharing my experience in the local institution, meaning IIT Madras. We have data science and AI. AI is artificial intelligence, data science and artificial intelligence as a new department in the last 1 year. We also have a lot of interest in energy and environment. So the sustainable development goals as a whole has kind of percolated extensively, in the field of engineering and science. So everything that we do is now classified extensively through the sustainable development goals. I'm sure you're familiar with SDGs, the 17 SDGs. Everything that we do is around that. Poverty alleviation, completely trying to throw away hunger, quality education, ensuring gender inequality is reduced, and so on. The health and happiness of individuals, and so on. So as academic institution, there are brand new departments, for example, medical science and technology, data science, related to biomedical, because biomedical is one area where mechanical engineers can contribute extensively. Most of the instruments, most of the equipment is imported from other countries. As all of you perhaps may be aware of the nature of IP related pricing strategies related to the import duties and so on are imposed extensively. So if the instruments, etc., are developed in India, for example, some of the ideas like Make in India for the World, Swachh Bharat, these kind of missions are essentially, oriented towards developing, for example, Swachh Bharat, Swasth Bharat. Swasth Bharat is one technology, one mission that is actually focused also on medical technologies. Developing medical technologies requires extensively the core discipline background, not just IT and software. Unfortunately, the medical technologies and defense technologies, these two are going to hinge heavily on mechanics. Mechanics, for example, any touch-based, for example, ISRO, you are familiar with recently, SHACS is now part of ISS, and then surely when our own Indian space program launches its own space station, I'm sure it requires a lot more, the background devices and development to be done, in terms of microgravity simulators, in terms of ensuring the drop towers, parabolic flight experiments, and so on. These are all primarily based on mechanics. If you look at, what is mechanics? Mechanics is surely the way we equilibrate with gravity is going to define forces. And looking at the force equilibriums and moment equilibriums against gravity, indirectly, most of the design principles of Newtonian mechanics are developed. And then the question is, if gravity is not there, how do we do those microgravity experiments on Earth? In itself is a huge challenge. Is that something where the ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, is going to, fund heavily? And surely the defense technologies are one area where mechanics is going to For example, if we want to really look at blast simulations, if a sudden mechanical energy is released, how do we ensure that anti-landmine devices are really, developed for anti-landmine vehicles, for example, are related to most of the missile technologies, the confluence of dynamics, controls, with, of course, IT. IT, please notice, computational engineering is part and parcel of every branch of engineering. I'm referring to large scale, high throughput computing, the scientific computing paradigms which require, I would say, solving a billion by billion matrix. If you have 1 billion simultaneous equations, system of simultaneous equations, again, computational methods, some of you will be surely be familiar. Maybe I'm being a little, a little bit monotonous, or I'm not sure, maybe because I do not have slides to support my case. You can surely think of a system of simultaneous equations. If it is a simple two variable, two equations, it's easy to solve. You have quick solutions, direct methods can be used. If you have a billion by billion matrix, most computational methods, whether you call local methods such as finite difference, finite volume, finite elements, they're all local methods. Those computational methods will surely are extensively used in the industry, either in the package form if the engineering designs are complicated, or in the form of some sort of their own homegrown solvers. Again, homegrown solvers need to compete against other commercial giants, and it's important that we need to support them. And the solving system of simultaneous equations, if it is billion by billion matrix and a vector of unknowns 1 billion equal to vector of knowns 1 billion value, AX equal to B kind of a format, it has to be done through a parallel computing route. And naturally, doing such large-scale solvers requires some kind of a master-slave architecture, building large-scale parallel computing facilities. And if those facilities are elsewhere, surely that's going to be not an easy task for doing large-scale calculations. It's important that we develop those technologies in India. And we do have, by the way, it's not that we don't have, that scale up and being able to compete with Sunnyway and companies like that is what I'm referring. Yeah, surely we hope most of you come back to India and contribute to India with your own, with your own expertise in your chosen field of research. Surely India welcomes all of you, and there are a variety of programs which are specially coined. There is Ramanujan Fellowship. There are many programs. Because I'm not an administrator, I could not compile the list of things. There is Ramalinga Swami Fellowship, and you can go to DST website. Now, SCRB is called, Anusandhan National Research Foundation, very similar to NRF in the US. We call it ANRF, Anusandhan National Research Foundation. You can go to ANRF website, and if you have good ideas, you can always present those ideas as an, through a tweet or anything. I'm sure the Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji's, entire team is always looking forward to ideas from young scholars. Also, the seasoned scholars who are willing to come back to India and contribute in India for the world. Thank you for this opportunity. During the interaction session, I may add a few more other issues, and maybe question answer sessions. Whatever I know, I can always discuss. Yeah, I'm done.
Thank you so much, Dr. Prasad, for painting such a well-rounded picture of, first of all, the mechanics education in India currently and the important place it holds in developing new technology in India. And I'm sure so many of us would be inspired to contribute to this development in in our ways. And I'm sure you'd be flooded with a lot of questions during the Q&A. So thank you so much again for your time. With this, let me share my screen again.
Nilotpal, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. We hear you. No problem. Meanwhile, Dr. Patnaik,
Yeah.
where do you think there are opportunities to bridge US and India while Nilotpal is getting the slides up? I was curious.
Well, there are varieties of possible, possibilities. In fact, BARC, Bhabha Atomic Research Center, and the UK extensively collaborate in the field of, research
see.
funding to Imperial College,
I
because
see.
there is
Imperial,
expertise,
London.
specific expertise. I'm referring to specific expertise in the field of, fluid thermal sciences. I'm just giving as one example. But surely US collaboration with India, it surely at various levels. It can be multifaceted. One can be university to university level collaboration. We have MOUs with something called joint degree programs, JDPs, wherein the Virginia Tech, for example, Professor Danesh Tafti is there in Mechanical Engineering Department. So we have with VTU, we have a joint degree program. We have with many leading institutes, we do have joint degree programs where maybe the scholar can spend a year or two, and it can also reduce the funding, concerns either in India or in the Western countries. So in that process, it helps both of us to have a kind of win-win in terms of research product development.
Yeah. So it sounds like this is really exciting, and I'll discuss later. I think Nilotpal has Dr. Mandal's slides up. So Nilotpal, we hand it back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ansari. So now we'd like to move on to our second speaker here today. Our second speaker here is Dr. Shravani Mondal, currently assistant professor at the Department of Chemistry in Jadavpur University. She specializes in physical chemistry, and her research interests include non-equilibrium statistical mechanics, stochastic thermodynamics, and Brownian motion, with applications in complex systems and biophysics. So without any further delay, I would like to hand it over to Dr. Mondal.
Thank you, Nilotpal, for your kind introduction. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, based on which part you are staying. So at first I would like to thank the organizer for giving me the opportunity to discuss my research in this platform. Okay, so with the organizer permission, I would like to share my screen.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, let me know if the slides are visible or not.
Yes, we can see them.
It's visible.
Thank you. Great. So, as Nilotpal already told, that my broad area of research is non-equilibrium statistical mechanics. So, actually, Rohit sent me the participants' profile early morning, and I saw that the most of the participants are from the UG level. So, considering this, I a little bit rearrange my presentation. So what I will do, give a brief description of Brownian motion, and then I will discuss briefly what actually we are doing using the statistical mechanics. So what problem we are actually solving using statistical mechanics as a tool. So let me start with the question, what is Brownian motion? Okay, so Robert Brown in 1827 observed pollen grain under the microscope, and to his surprise, he observed that teeny particle of the pollen grain suspended within the fluid moves in a haphazard fashion. Now, is the pollen grain alive? How could you explain this situation? Remember that you are in 1827. So would you get excited at the thought that you may have discovered the very essence of life? So what Mr. Brown did, he repeated his experiment considering all type of teeny particle, and he found that any particle, including rock or dust or chalk dust, uh, show the similar kind of haphazard movement. Now this phenomena is well known and it is called Brownian motion. So this is an result of actual experiment. The particle position were recorded at interval of 30 seconds. And you can see that the particle may have different position and velocity at a particular time. So this is mysterious, right? Because we know from the Newton mechanics that at a particular time, the particle may have only one position and one velocity. So the scientists in 19th century, they were very much puzzled by this observation because at that time, it was commonly believed that matter are continuous. So you can argue that before that, Dalton and Avogadro gives their atomic and molecular theory, but most of the scientific community do not agree with their theory. So if the matter are continuous, then why it is moving and why in an erratic way? So let me give you some hint. Suppose you are sitting in a big stadium watching football being played between two equally good teams. Suppose the players are invisible, nothing except the ball are visible. Now what you will see? You will see a picture like this, right? So is the ball drunk? Of course not. So it moves that way because it is being hit repeatedly by the players in the two teams. So if you consider this thought experiment, then you can have an idea why the Brownian particle moves in that way. So if we consider the water molecule moves perpetually, some faster than others. And as they move, they keep colliding with each other, which can possibly change their speed and direction of motion. Now you can very well imagine the fate of the Brownian particle, which unfortunately placed in the mad crowd of the water molecule. The poor fellow is getting hit at any instant from all sides by millions of water molecules. And the end result is that its position keeps changing randomly. And the Einstein was the first who gave the entire theoretical picture for this observation, and it has huge importance in science. So it provides a convincing evidence for the molecular theory of matter. Skeptics who doubt their existence were silenced, and it shows that atoms and molecules are real physical objects. And Brownian motion is considered as the microscopic process responsible for diffusion on a macroscopic scale. And it has huge importance in other fields also. So in physics, it explains phenomena like diffusion, phase transition. In biology, it explains biological phenomena like aggregation process. In economics, it explains market price fluctuation. In social science, birth, death, accidents, ups and downs in relationship, all social events are stochastic process. Now, since I am in chemistry department, I always heard the question like, why you are doing this type of research in chemistry department? So I would like to answer this question in this manner. In thermal reaction, reactive entity remain attached to the surroundings atoms and molecules. That means reaction coordinate shows Brownian motion. And as you know, that reaction or reactive entity do not cross the transition state at the same time. And Arrhenius gives the empirical law for the mean lifetime of the reactive entity. And Cammers, for the first time, give the microscopic formula for the Arrhenius result. So this is really important in chemistry. So with this, I would like to give an overview what type of problem we are solving using statistical mechanics as a tool. So I will discuss some aspect that I already explored. So at first, I already says that after the Kramers problem, Brownian motion gets a strong footing in chemistry, and he explored the Arrhenius law from a microscopic point of view. And as an extension of this model, we consider that we can stabilize the transition state by the proper choice of the noise. So it is expected that at the transition state or near the transition state, the motion will be very fast. But when we apply the cross-correlated noise, we surprisingly see that motion is slow rather than fast. Another aspect is ion conductivity. So ion conducting electrolyte have the potential application in all solid state device. For example, flexible electrochromic display, smart windows, etc. And the properties of the conductivity are tuned by varying chemical composition. Now, to vary the chemical composition is very difficult, and you cannot do it continuously. The process would be discrete. So it would be very interesting if one can use some simple physical method to tune the conductivity. And the process that we have in hand, one is applying electric field and another is magnetic field. And considering this, we apply the magnetic field and studied the barrier crossing dynamics. And in presence, in this case, we have considered both the time dependent and the time independent magnetic field. So the next aspect is time delay. So time delay can be defined as the finite time required to transfer some energy or information through the system. And we saw that if we apply the time delay, the Kramers anomaly appear even at the spatial diffusion region as a signature of the time delay induced dissipation-like effect. So the next aspect is aggregation dynamics. Aggregation is very common in nature. So in biological system, you can see the aggregation such as insect swarms, fish school, and mammals herd. And in this process, cooperation among the individual is very important. And noise play a dual role in this cooperation mechanism. So first, the noise actually pull the particle towards the larger influence zone of the cluster, and it also takes away the particle from the cluster. So we want to study how the kinetics of the aggregation process depends on these properties of the noise. So another burning issue of the present research is ambient energy harvesting. So you know that powering of small scale device is a problematic issue. The old strategy was to use the battery, but it has several limitations. One most common is that when the battery used their charge, it cannot be replaced. So the current strategy is to harvest energy from ambient fluctuation, since it is always available. So this is the micro schematics of micro electromechanical system, and this process comprises two steps. First, the external noise drive a damp oscillator, and the second, the oscillator is coupled to a capacitor that stored the electrical energy. So we have several questions to answer based on this model, and we actually explored how the properties of the mechanical oscillator affect the ambient energy conversion, how the noise play a role, and if there is any trade-off between the power and efficiency. And we also try to optimize both power and efficiency when there are trade-off between them. We We also proposed Fokker-Payne equation in a simple way for Langevin equation of motion having ordinary derivative and the Gaussian random force and a generalized fiction memory kernel. Now, when we are using modern device, we always get annoyed by any kind of background hiss or noise. But if we consider some extra dose of noise actually can help rather than hinder the performance of some device. And this phenomena is actually well known and it is called stochastic resonance. So earlier it was believed that stochastic resonance is a phenomena that could only manifest in nonlinear system. It requires three basic ingredients. One, an energetic activation barrier. Second, a weak periodic forcing. And third, a noise. Now we try to explore if it is possible to observe the stochastic resonance in a linear system without periodic forcing. And we saw that, yes, it is possible in a linear system without periodic forcing. And we claim that this is the simplest system where one can observe the stochastic resetting. So another aspect is dynamic scaling, which is not related to Brownian motion, but we can use statistical mechanics as a tool. So we know that chemical kinetic mechanism has the functionality and the diversity to create new material, create critical medication and sustain life. And the kinetic mechanism are very difficult to classify because of this diversity and the non-equilibrium nature. And we try to explore if there are any complementary dynamical scaling law for the chemical reaction. And we found that the fluctuation of several observable of the chemical reaction follow the dynamic scaling hypothesis, which are parallel to the family Fixac form. But the scaling law are not correspond to those which are known in surface roughening. So another aspect is Pareto optimal front. So you know that DNA replication, RNA transcription, or protein translation, all this process shows remarkable accuracy and speed in selecting right substrate from the pool of chemically identical molecules. And now it is well known that the speed, error, and dissipation of this process will have a trade-off. So we want to explore this trade-off and considering the mathematical optimization theory, and we characterize the Pareto optimal front of this trade-off. And we also answer how the number of proofreading step affects the speed error dissipation trade-off, considering the generalized Hopfield model. So now, recently I am working on stochastic resetting. So stochastic resetting is a diffusion process whose state is reset to a fixed state at random times. So suppose, let me give some analogy. So suppose you lost a key. So what you will do, you will explore some of the area, and after unsuccessful attempt, you will return to the initial state and restart your search, right? So very general idea is that resetting cutoffs the errant trajectory and the long time tail. So we try to answer the following question, like we want to generalize the theory of stochastic resetting for the non-Markovian dynamics, which is very important in condensed state. And we also know that there is a link between kinetic proofreading and the optimal restart. So we want to explore if we can use this analogy to explore the effectiveness of the kinetic proofreading and compute the optimal property like speed, error, and dissipation. So these are the work that actually currently we are doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mondal, for giving us a nice overview of Brownian motion and how it is applicable in the different fields. And I'm sure that the participants would have taken few points to use that in their research. And thank you so much. I think we can save the questions for the end of the panel. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Mandal. Now we would like to introduce our final speaker for today, Dr. P. Kaushik, a software developer of Fluid Flow at Cosmol Inc. in Bangalore currently. He was previously assistant professor at NIT Trichy and Ramya Institute of Technology. It would be insightful to hear from Dr. P. Kaushik. Dr. Kaushik, please.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Kanchana, and thank you to the SCI-ROI Forum for inviting me. So I just don't want to take too much time, and I'll just try to keep it brief because I think the question answer session is something that the participants would look forward to. So rather than discussing what I feel might be important, it might be better to listen to the audience and find out what is important to them and then perhaps give answers. I would also like to say that it is an honor to be sharing the stage with esteemed colleagues such as Professor Prasad and Dr. Shravani. I think most of the points that I thought of making was covered eloquently by Professor Prasad Patnaik. Nevertheless, I will just try to briefly talk about how mechanics affects us. So, I mean, without mechanics, there is nothing in this world. So, when humans became humans, it's basically by a discovery of machines, okay, tools, etc. So, mechanics, the word origin comes from that. So, some of the points that Dr. Prasad made was, perfectly relevant because today, particularly in the computational space, India has achieved quite a big milestone because a lot of the simulations are usually done by engineers in India for multinational corporations and industries. So I would say that lot of mechanics simulations we have taken over from probably the West, and it is time for us to take on the experimental aspects as well as product development part of it. So in the modern day, you have this simulations which are, Nilotmal asked me to talk about LBS and such, but I see that the audience is quite mixed. I would like to say something interesting that I saw that a lot of UG students are around here. And in fact, there are jobs in, sales, marketing and such, which are open to graduates. So those who have completed their UG programs and are coming into the workforce. There are jobs like that for engineers in India where they are selling products or services which are heavily technical. So earlier days, we thought that the sales and marketing job was always restricted to maybe some BComs or just BA graduates and MBAs. But you have technical graduates who can definitely help out in or occupy this sales and marketing positions in such product and service based companies. So I mean that is a big difference from what you would hear from probably the other speakers. So I'm glad that some of the UG students have joined, and in order to sell products which are actually very complex in terms of the technical requirements or the technical know-how, you require good graduate engineers in order to do so. So I would say that this in modern day in Indian industry, that is a big requirement. Also, I would like to say that Indian growth is going to be tremendous in the next 2 years. That is what I'm anticipating. So I think, like Professor Prasad pointed out, you all should definitely think about coming back to India and contributing for the growth of our country, and making it probably 10 billion GDP, or sorry, 10 trillion GDP, as the government keeps telling. So I think coming back to India and starting some special expertise which is not there in India would be the way to go for the postdocs and the late stage PhD students. And for the UGs, the sky is the limit. You come back, you can get into any field, and there is so much going on. Even the mathematics graduates, the biology graduates, you have so much medical startups, medtech, and then you have financial technology which is happening, the innovations. So, I mean, sky is the limit, and I hope to see you all back in India and working for our country. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Kaushik, so much for sharing your thoughts about the current and the future prospects of mechanics graduates and postgraduates, not only in the technical field but also in the marketing side of things. Like you said, the scene has changed now. Even the technical people can take up the baton for selling the products, the technical products they're developing. And also, like towards the end of your talk, you also inspired us to sort of go back to India and basically apply our gained expertise abroad in developing the new technologies in India. And I'm sure there will be a lot of questions for you in the Q&A. Thank you so much again for your talk. With this, we are towards the end of our speakers list today. So here I would like to thank all of our speakers for sharing your thoughts drawn from your experiences about the current developments and the future prospects of mechanics in India. Now, I would like to call upon Vaishali to talk something about the Sci-ROI Global that we are part of.
Thank you, Nilotpal. So before we move ahead, we would be interested in knowing that how many of you are already the subscribers of Sci-ROI YouTube channel. And for those, interestingly, who haven't yet subscribed to our channel, we encourage you to subscribe and stay tuned with our future activities as we keep on bringing interesting line of events planned up for the scholars based in US and Europe and across the globe for moving back to India. So we encourage each and everyone to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And going to the next version, we would also like to initiate and start the Q&A session. But before we start the Q&A session, I would like to remind of the basic Zoom etiquettes. First, it would be great if you could please keep yourself muted throughout the webinar, and post the questions in the Zoom chat. We will try to accommodate as many questions as possible in the Q&A session. And after that, please keep your video on during the interaction session, because it is always good to have facial interactions and we get to know who's the speaker and the person who is asking the question as well. So over to Nilotpal further.
Thank you so much, Vaishali. We'd like to start our Q&A session. So let's start with our speakers one by one. So I'd start with Dr. Prasad. We have a question here, which is, in your experience, like your research is, like current research is collaborating with clinicians and doctors. So how has your understanding of mechanics evolved when applied to something as organic and unpredictable as the human body?
Okay, that's an excellent question. I think because I didn't talk about what kind of research I do, we have collaborated extensively with neurosurgeons in the field of something called cerebrovascular diseases. One specific, institute by name Sri Chitra Tirunal Institute of Medical Science and Technology. It's under DST. It's not under, the National Medical Council. It's not under the Ministry of Health. It's under the Department of Science and Technology. Very, very niche institute, very specialized institute in cerebrovascular diseases. They are also pioneers in the development of Chitra valve. Chitra valve is a heart valve associated with how to bring down the prices of heart valves in India. This was a program more than 3 decades ago. It was started by Professor Valliyathan. At that point of time, of course, the technology was very primitive in terms of the availability of valves. So the import duties were huge, and therefore the focus was on that. And they are now extremely competitive. The Chitra valve is now marketed by TTK Group. And the development phase was fully funded by Government of India. And the cardiovascular surgeons were closely associated with that. Coming to my specific research in the context of cerebrovascular diseases, we work on aneurysms, which are essentially bulges in arteries. The mechanics has a huge role to play because the hemodynamic forces are responsible for the continuous bulging of these arteries. Unless and until somebody goes for a CT scan, there are no symptoms. And one of those persons who was affected by an aneurysm was this Amelia Clark. That what is the name of that specific? She's famous for some web series. Emilia Clarke had this kind of a, she has a beautiful piece in CNBC talking about how essentially these bulges suddenly, when they rupture, there is a blood leakage. Why will they rupture? Think of a pressure vessel rupture. Think of any balloon burst. It is just like a micro balloon bursting inside your brain. And that bursting of the balloon, as long as the balloon is growing, nobody knows. Only when it bursts, there is a blood leakage and there is a sudden brain hemorrhage. Naturally, the person is in ICU, and then that's a consequence. The question is, the mechanics has a huge role to play because the rupture of this micro balloon is essentially because of the thinning of this blood vessel, and the thinning of blood vessel is also kind of a stasis kind of environment is set up. Will we be able to sort of really identify certain aneurysms which are benign and won't rupture at all, or always likely to rupture under certain conditions? It's of interest to prioritize patients. If somebody is discovered with an unruptured aneurysm, is it really possible to prioritize a patient and then not really worry about, okay, it's a small aneurysm, you can go for another 6 months, 1 year, absolutely nothing is going to happen. Can we give that kind of a confidence? So the mechanics can tell us about the rupture risk prediction aspect of this issue. And that we have kind of contributed extensively on this. And there is quite a bit of published literature on rupture risk of cerebral aneurysms. Of course, aneurysms or bulges can also occur in something called an inverted U-tube called the aorta. It could be, abdominal aortic aneurysms. It could be thoracic aortic aneurysms. Again, that's under the cardiovascular side. We are also extensively collaborating with, trying to, maybe I can share my screen and show a small, extremely small video if you are permitting. I'm not sure whether that is permitted at this point of time, wherein I can tell about the role of mechanics, just a very short video. It's just half a minute or 1 minute. It's about a device called Impella. Is that okay now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So this is about a device called Impella, and I'm not sure whether this is it audible. Is my audio recording? Is it audible?
We can't hear the audio.
It's not audible.
Oh, it's not audible. Okay, okay. That means whatever is playing from the, maybe I would just add this to the participants so that where can I put the link so that they can watch leisurely
In the
this
chat.
1 minute video?
You can
In
put
the
that in the
chat?
chat.
Okay, okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
I can do that. Yeah, coming back, mechanics has a huge role to play. Number one, in terms of the way we really sort of look at rupture risk prediction associated aspects, the valve dynamics aspects, for example, valves are closing and opening, to what extent hemodynamics and associated cardiovascular mechanics. Of course, the field is mostly in the realm of, you can call this as, some kind of cerebrovascular mechanics, cardiovascular mechanics. Surely it is not typically seen by a human physiology person or a cardiovascular surgeon purely from the point of view of mechanics, because engineers are quite versatile in kind of idealizing the mathematical, mathematical ideas to be brought into picture, and then those aspects are not able to get out of this screen. Yeah, quite versatile in bringing mathematical ideas and trying to sort of bring up issues of interest to where software can help or experimentation can help. So surely mechanics has a huge role to play. Either you see that through the prism of the solid mechanics or fluid mechanics, but cardiovascular surgeons, cardiologists, they look at it purely from the point of view of the word stasis associated with the style in which they are taught. For example, in India, unfortunately, there are watertight compartments between biology and mathematics. And therefore, a biologist who is really interested is never really taught the traditional math training where models can help them to sort of really simplify. At best, they are associated with biostatistics, do certain population cohort studies and generalize. But we in engineering very routinely use mathematical models, and those mathematical models are really the cornerstone in our engineering designs. Human body can also be kind of engineered in some way to replicate. Maybe there are individual or patient specific issues which can be brought into this entire story. The question is to what extent the patient-specific concerns can be, falling within the range of uncertainties and so on. Sometimes, if they fall well within, surely we can really do the fundamental fluid mechanics-based calculations, like the Navier-Stokes solvers can be used to understand the physiological fluid mechanics associated with the cardiovascular systems, cerebrovascular systems. So I can elaborate on this specific theme extensively, but surely the medical technology is one area where electronics and instrumentation engineers with electrical engineering, electronics engineering background are extensively involved in imaging systems, in the development of the radiological systems. You call it CT scans related to ultrasound and so on. But then mechanical engineers' involvement related to some of the heart pumps, for instance, something called left ventricular assist device. There is hardly any development of an LVAD competitor in India. The one that I was showing is a kind of example where it is called Impella, the heart pump, also called world's smallest heart pump. And this pump has, it's pure marvel of fluid mechanics in terms of a small, cute, possible micro pump design. And it costs close to 20 lakhs when it is imported from abroad. And it's very much required for, as a support system for ensuring that the cardiogenic shock doesn't happen for the patient getting operated. And a simple, bypass surgery kind of thing surely will not use this because it costs very expensive. And the hemodynamic competence is compromised if you really work on a beating heart. The beating heart surgeries are common in India, but normal patients can withstand beating heart surgeries. But if somebody is a geriatric patient, high-risk patient, putting an Impella pump additionally while the bypass surgery is going on is going to be a huge advantage for the patient. There are very systematic studies how efficiency or the success of operation is much higher in terms of 95% versus, especially high risk patients. So in that sense, mechanics has a huge role to play. Any competition to such micro pumps, etc., is going to be quite wonderful for the whole. I mean, I'm sure the prices will keep crashing in case there is an indigenous development. That's exactly what happened for Chitra valve.
Thank you so much, Dr. Prasad. Those were really eye-opening insights. I think Rohit has raised his hand. So off to you, Rohit.
Yes. I have a question to all three of the speakers. And that question is, how and when it is important to understand what's going on in the background of a computational software like COMSOL, like when we should stop treating it like a black box.
Well, I can answer this question, but I think Kaushik is the right expert to sort of say something, and then, because he works for COMSOL, and yeah, I have known him for quite a long time, very eminent teacher in NIT Trichy. But then he shifted from, academic institute to industry, so he can comment on those aspects of plus minus for professionals who are looking for that advice as well. Professor Kaushik.
Thank you, sir. So actually, so it just doesn't start from doing the software. It starts from your basic mechanics, fluid mechanics class. So the fundamental basics are very important to see whether what the software gives is correct or not. I think Professor Prasad will agree with whatever I said, because day in and day out, it is being taught. Each year, the students graduate those classes of fluid mechanics and basic mechanics, structural mechanics, etc. So, in order for you not to use any software as a black box, not just COMSOL, any other software as well, you have to understand what is the paradigm on which it works. So to understand that, you have to have a good grasp of your basic, mechanics related subjects, as well as you should have a good grasp of some mathematics, particularly the computational mathematics. So your linear algebra and your topics such as partial differential equations. So then you get an idea of what is done. And normally, a lot of students ask, "Sir, this is so difficult. How do I start with it?" So sometimes you may not need to know the exact details of all the mathematics that goes into this software, but to sort of correlate what is there in your mechanics textbook with what you can see in the software. For example, there will be some live demo examples, or something of that sort. So, for example, in COMSOL you have a application model called backstep. So it is basically a step flow. So your hydraulic diameter of a channel changes abruptly. So this is something you have done in your fluid mechanics. So you have this major losses, minor losses. In that topic, you would have studied that. So it's up to you to sort of correlate what is going on in that model and what you were taught in mechanics, and see how you can try to understand from your mechanics point of view what is happening in the software. So I hope this sort of answers your question.
Yes, it does. But I would like to also have other speakers' perspective on this.
I can add a few aspects, but maybe Dr. Sharbani, you want to say something, and then I can add a few things.
Actually, I'm not sure whether I'm the right person to answer this question, because I actually solved the stochastic differential equation using just Runge-Gupta method. So I use Fortran, and I don't use any software. and I know every line. I have to write the script from the beginning. So I don't have much experience using COMSOL. I just heard about this. So maybe you can continue.
Yeah. So there are, maybe I can add a few things. Commercial solvers is a different game. They have licensing issues, and then you really need to pay for the number of degrees of freedom that you actually choose to use. For instance, if the number of degrees of freedom is beyond a certain number, let us say, I'm just giving as a number, 1 million and above, you may have to be classified as an industry problem. You will be solving industry scale problem. Therefore, the license for solving such large scale problems has to be paid in a different style compared to academic licenses. One is, number one, all commercial solvers by and large do not have access to any of the the code behind the scenes. The code behind the scenes is surely the IP of the company. You're only facilitated through some kind of a front end, and using it with certain like, for example, the examples that Professor Kaushik mentioned can be, benchmark problems are available. One has to really solve those benchmark problems to be able to be comfortable in the usage of those commercial solvers. The other competition typically comes from homegrown solvers. One can be a competitor for a certain XYZ solver in a niche area. Let us say the fire simulations. If somebody really specializes in fire modeling, there is a lot of interest in developing extinguishers, in developing fire models where a certain building which is, if there is a sudden fire in some part of the kitchen, some part of an electrical short circuit, and so on, you need to do the modeling and see how fast that the fire is likely to grow, that fire is likely to sort of can be contained. It's an engineering, what if kind of analysis, which is typically done. So in that spirit, the homegrown solvers are something that can surely compete under certain circumstances, because they have access to the original source code, and the person who is paying is surely happy to sort of have the homegrown code. For example, we are also sometimes under embargo regimes. For instance, a defense company or a defense organization or a nuclear establishment perhaps cannot use a certain software. And of course, those embargoes are gone now, but at some point of time, such embargoes also made us to really think about homegrown solvers, think about solvers which can be accessible with source code, so that DAE, Department of Atomic Energy, and the associated programs like there is something called BRNS, Board of Research for Nuclear Studies. There are also boards related to Armament Research Board, related to all defense technology groups have their own funding agencies separately. Based on the need of those DRDO or CSIR laboratories, there is funding available for such research, wherein the homegrown codes are really central, with the source code, etc., can be utilized. Certainly, developing homegrown codes requires quite a bit of background in terms of computing, as well as understanding the mechanics behind either strength of materials or structural mechanics or the fundamental fluid mechanics. It could be compressible flows, incompressible flows, whatever. I mean, the nature of application area that one is really targeting, that can be the key. So in that sense, homegrown solvers are welcome. They must be in competition, just like Linux was in competition by Linus Torvald at some point of time, several decades ago. He was competing against a giant called Microsoft at that point of time. So, no, surely he's right, and that's the state of technology that should happen at every stage. You should challenge the existing paradigm, and with the, maybe I must say that with the the emergence of data science-based technologies, surely the confluence of several engineering disciplines perhaps are likely to get clouded, or I'm not sure to what extent they are going to be clouded, and surely computing and data science we have to embrace in every engineering discipline. I'm extremely sure about the fact that mechanics also should embrace that kind of a paradigm shift in thinking. Perhaps it's going to be part and parcel of the curriculum in most of the mechanics-based researchers at the BTech level or a master's level, wherein just like we study numerical methods, computational methods like finite element or computational fluid dynamics and mechanics courses, we are also likely to study data science related courses which are going to hinge heavily on understanding the machine learning paradigms into the design aspects of mechanics based technologies. Yeah, I think maybe I'll look for other questions.
Thank you, Dr. Prasad, for such a detailed answer. Yeah, I think Kanchana has raised her hand for question.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kaushik and Dr. Prasad Patnaik, for giving such nice answers for this question. I'd like to ask a question to Dr. Sharmani Mondal. Ma'am, you were talking about aggregation dynamics and applications of Brownian motion. If you can elaborate on how students can approach these aspects of it, because you said mechanics is not just limited to mechanical sciences, it is also extended to physics, chemistry and such. We have audience from the wide range of groups. We have audience from physics, chemistry, biology and engineering as well. So for students who are in undergrad and if they are interested in doing research in mechanics, what would you say, like how do they approach these problems? What are the skill sets they are wanting to learn? Like you said, you are also programming by hand instead of using console. So what kind of programming skills students can learn? If you can elaborate on that, that would be great.
Okay, thank you for the question. And as I said, I was first introduced Brownian motion in my postgraduate. So, say the field actually non-equilibrium statistical mechanics requires some knowledge about the Brownian motion, and it's actually mainly analytical. Our work mainly analytical, and what if the system are more complex, so we cannot solve by hand, so then we use the numerical method. And for that I actually use Fortran, as I earlier mentioned. So several people have asked me that Fortran is a kind of dinosaurus age program, so why you are not using any advanced language? So after exploring C, R, and C++, I found that Fortran is most suitable for me. And as a starting point, we have some courses in our university at UG level and postgraduate level, where we teach how to do programming in Fortran. So that actually sets their initial stage. And after postgraduate, they actually got some idea about Brownian motion. So they have their initial background. So with this background, one can start studying the non-equilibrium statistical mechanics.
Maybe I want to add a few statements to this. The best compilers at this point are in Fortran. You will be shocked and surprised. Number one, and most of the scientific computing codes are still in Fortran. That will be another shocker. And the compilers that we are referring, it's actually not the language that matters. It's what is written using that language that matters. For instance, whatever is written by Rabindranath Tagore is surely translated into every language. What is written by J.K. Rowling in English is surely translated in every possible language. Absolutely, language is just a barrier between the human, who is writing at a high level language, and that's getting translated into a lower level language. Whether you write in Fortran, Python, or C, C++, Java, it doesn't matter. What matters is, what is written using that language. That's what matters. Surely, I mean, Fortran is still the king of scientific programming languages. Dr. Sharbani, you can be still proud of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I found that it takes a much shorter time. Since we have
Well, the libraries and support for scientific computing is extremely strong in Fortran. I'm sure the other, we are not referring to the very traditional. Here, please notice it's about high throughput computing. We are talking about large scale number crunching based, problems where the Brownian motion or the Fokker-Planck equation that's being solved by Dr. Sharbani Mondal is essentially, the cornerstone in understanding stochastic dynamics of non-equilibrium statistical mechanics. Surely, I mean, it's a huge area in itself. Surely the computing has to be, it doesn't frankly matter as long as you have the library support. There is something called numerical analysis group, or the NAG group. NAG is NAG. NAG group is, where the library support exists extensively for numerical computing. Of course, people have shifted extensively to Python, no doubt. Yeah, that's part of the new age culture, and maybe there is a better integration in terms of the the other supporting systems. Quickly you can show visualization, you can also present everything in one shot, and then that's perfectly all right. I guess Fortran will stay. Fortran is here to stay. It has evolved really with pointers and all that, and then extensively, yeah, it has undergone transformation.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Dr. Sharbani Mondal. I'd also like to have Dr. Kaushik's take on this, because I understand that all of the speakers kind of mentioned the background in programming, irrespective of what tool we use. The students really have to understand what goes behind it. So, Dr. Kaushik, if you can add on to it.
Sure. So at the outset, I would like to say that my PhD work was completely in Fortran, and so the manager who interviewed me in ComSol, he is of mathematics background, and he liked that I knew Fortran, and that's why he hired me. So I think there is nothing more to say, about Fortran. So yeah, I mean, Fortran basically means formula translation. So it is basically the number crunching machine. But of late, you will see that most of the development has shifted to higher level languages like C++, Java, etc. Only mainly because of their object-oriented programmingness. So some places it's easier, particularly for commercial software development. It becomes slightly easier to use Java or C++ because you can design the GUI better, the graphical user interface. So that is probably why they're shifted. Otherwise, I think Fortran does a fantastic job, I mean, no doubt. But the reason you switch over to a commercial software is because essentially in industries, you don't have time to write your own code. And even of late in academia also, it's not possible to write your own code. 10 years ago, things were different. Now there is a lot of pressure to publish. There is a lot of pressure from not only your professors or your supervisors, there is also pressure from your lab mates and your colleagues and peers to publish. Because if you don't publish, then you'll not get a good, maybe postdoc or a faculty position or whatever. So things have changed. So yeah, that is how it is. But definitely nothing beats writing your own basic codes. So when I used to teach in NIT, I think Nirav Pal will agree that I used to make them write some codes. I was not very particular about which language they should use, but I would always tell them to write code, and most of them at that point itself used to start writing in Python. So yeah, I have not seen even one student in the time I was in NITC between 2018 and 23 write any code in Fortran. So yeah, that's how it is. People use MATLAB and it's easier. But once you get used to Fortran, it's just amazing. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think Vaishali has raised her hand. Please go ahead, Vaishali.
Thank you, Kanchana. I have an interesting question, which I would like insights from all the three respected panelists. Thoughts, like in case we imagine mechanics was being taught with the same energy and enthusiasm as coding in coding boot camps, what would you change in the way we teach mechanics in the Indian universities compared to the coding boot camps? Thank you.
Can I go?
Yes, sir.
Can I
You're
answer that
90%.
question? Yeah. No, I mean, it's a tough question, to be frank. Mechanics curriculum, especially if you're looking at engineering mechanics alone, it's in terms of purely, you can think of sigma F equal to MA takes care of dynamics, along with sigma M equal to I theta double dot for rigid bodies. In that sense, the two equations totally sum up mechanics, easily. But its application is something that we cannot straight away say, okay, everything is applied, and then please apply these two equations everywhere, and therefore mechanics is over. I'll be thrown out of my job if I do that. So it has to be taught in a very step-by-step fashion, just like a baby is actually taught by parents, grandparents and so on, how to really walk initially and handhold to make sure the kid is not falling and hurting himself or herself. In a similar way, mechanics is typically taught in the engineering curriculum, in a step-by-step fashion. Typically as something called particle mechanics first, where the size and shape doesn't really matter. Then you bring size and shape, and as well as it will be a rigid body essentially. We call it as rigid body mechanics. Once you talk about rigid body mechanics, bring in material aspects related to rheological behavior of the material. And then you may say, okay, look, let us look at stress strain relations and embed that, and talk about deformable body mechanics, talk about the material, aspects associated with the mechanics. And then, of course, you also talk about the rheology in the context of fluids, where it could be stress strain rate, not just stress strain, and then talk about fluid mechanics as a separate subject, and look at its applications to a variety of other fields. Look at heat transfer, look at combustion, look at maybe hydraulics and those kind of areas, depending on which part of the engineering curriculum you come from. So in that spirit, mechanics cannot be like a boot camp, because the mechanics has its own set of, if you say everything is sigma F equal to MA, sigma M equal to I theta double dot, that surely sums up rigid body mechanics. Nothing more is required. But how do you elaborate these two in terms of the scalar component equations, in terms of applications related to static structures, related to dynamic structures? Yeah, one has to be taught in a very systematic way, and say that, look, for non-accelerated systems, which are either completely at rest or in a state of motion with constant velocity, the acceleration is zero, therefore sigma F equal to zero, and similarly sigma M equal to zero sums up whole of statics. Statics is typically taught first, then only you graduate, and a lot of civil engineering applications are all, buildings are designed for static equilibrium. Then all typically most structures are designed for static equilibrium. Only then you talk about dynamics, and again dynamics is also kind of sliced into two components. initially without bringing the forces or moments into account, you talk about purely kinematic aspects. We just call it kinematics. Then you bring in the force elements into this and moment elements into this, and then talk about kinetics. So it has to be taught very, just like a baby is taught how to read and write. Mechanics has to be taught in a step-by-step fashion. Boot camps are possible provided somebody completes all the 3 layers or flavors of mechanics, and one can be given a problem, and then they can be told to use the scrap and really come up with a device and so on. Mechanics is more about analysis and understanding. The device aspect comes only through design. The designs only will say, hey, look, this, and of course, with the help of production and machine tools, you essentially make the design work. So mechanics is more on the side of analysis and trying to support your designs. Mechanics in itself cannot exactly say, hey, look, I can make this piece and work like this. Whereas we are talking about in a coding sense, you can write a piece of code, make it work, where the idealizations associated with that piece of code, what it is supposed to do in terms of functionality, we are able to show that the code works. So in that sense, it's a little bit more abstract, the code working on the screen and then, developing whatever. I mean, it could be a simple sorting of something. I'm oversimplifying, but then I'm saying, okay, the boot camp can have a much bigger problem, but it's in the realm of completely, writing a code and showing that it works, and then finally you are happy about the outcome. Such a thing purely with the help of mechanics, it's not easy, because mechanics only talks in terms of analysis. It doesn't really translate your analysis into a design and then subsequently support in a working model. Yeah. Somebody has further question, I can maybe either say yes or no, or sort of elaborate beyond that. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Prasad, for such a great explanation. I wish I was an undergrad while seeing this video. I wish I had a chance to see as an undergrad and incorporated this knowledge well in advance. Now that I am a PhD student, so I have a follow-up question, and my question is that I have observed that applied mechanics as a subject is available in very few institutes in India, as far as I know, like in few IITs and maybe 1 or 2 NITs maybe. So and maybe in a very recent time there is a new emergence of this mechanics as a subject, and as you said, there is a BTech program as well at IIT Madras. So I'm just curious, like why is it now? Like why not it was given such importance earlier, and why is it not widespread as other so-called like core departments? Like my question is to all the speakers.
Sure, because you started with applied mechanics, and I come from applied mechanics department. If you look at the development or history of mechanics curriculum, you see IUTAMS, International Union for Theoretical and Applied Mechanics. In fact, IUTAMS are quite powerful, and then they were very well integrated with mechanical engineering curriculum. The departments were originally called, there could be offshoots from, applied mechanics and aerospace. If a particular institute has a well-grounded program in aerospace engineering, it could be applied mechanics and mechanical engineering in some places. If the focus is on material mechanics, there could be applied mechanics, material science kind of a department. So it also depends on sometimes the local expertise initially at the point of initial conditions, and how quickly or how smartly they were in a position to regroup the departments, starting a department is relatively easy, but regrouping sometimes it's not easy in terms of the sustenance of those departments. So in that sense, the applied mechanics department as a separate department exists only in 2 IITs and half a dozen NITs. They were originally coined to support basic engineering core courses such as engineering mechanics, fluid mechanics, and strength of materials. And some of these groups have actually specialized, went on to specialize in some areas like biomechanics, in some places, really focusing on structural mechanics and doing a lot of civil engineering kind of work. In some places, focusing a lot on fluid mechanics and making a name for themselves and so on. It also depends on the local grouping, the local industry, or what kind of initial conditions were really good for those departments. And some of them are administrative calls. For example, whether to start a new program in an applied mechanics department is something. For instance, we have renamed our department just to reflect the character of the department more meaningfully. It's possible, and it's an administrative call. It's for the people who are administering the institutes, etc. They will be in a better position to make those decisions. But in terms of mechanics curriculum, it exists in civil engineering, mechanical, chemical, ocean engineering quite extensively. In fact, we were even supporting electrical engineering in a big way. Electrical engineers were supposed to also take care of electricity production. Therefore, the hydraulic, the related to hydro-turbines, they're supposed to understand that because electrical energy is produced using hydel energy as well. In that sense, they were even taught fluid mechanics several decades ago. But at this point of time, electrical engineering has become so specialized, so they may not be interested in even learning basics of mechanics. So basics of mechanics are again, are there everywhere. The question is whether those specialized fields really want to understand those basic foundations or not is the choice of the industry as well. Industry looks forward to quickly, making sure how to make use of this engineer rather than training them on basics and fundamentals. Sometimes basics and fundamentals required for the company doesn't translate into revenue. Therefore, they may be more keen on making sure the engineer is quickly in a state of in a state of motion, meaning in a state of working condition. So they hardly, to be fair to industry, they hardly care about the understanding of the individual because there are different layers to the entire structure itself. Not that everybody has to understand every aspect of mechanics.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Prasad, for such a detailed answer. I really get the scenario now, like why mechanics is like as you mentioned, like now that India's growth story is coming up, so maybe this financial side may also be coming up, and maybe developments of softwares and everything like solvers may be gaining strength in India itself. So I totally get it what you have said. But now I would like to have other two speakers' opinion on this. So my question is like why okay, Dr. P. Kaushik, do you have anything to say?
I thought you wanted the opinion.
Yes. I'm just re-asking the question, like why only a few institutes have applied mechanics instead of like core departments. Yeah.
Maybe Dr. Savani would like to go.
Maj, you can go ahead.
Okay. Probably might be speculating. I don't have a detailed answer, but I did my master's and PhD from IIT Kharagpur. So there was a plaque of the statement of our first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, which talked about India moving to the future. So basically, IIT Kharagpur is the first IIT in India, and it was uh, essentially earlier a detention camp for the Indian freedom fighters. So basically, it's like it was like this Andaman Cellular Jail. So there are these jail cells which you can even now visit. So the idea was to usher in a new progressive India from the shackles of our colonial past. So at that point of time, the main requirements was to build roads, have electricity. So the essential requirement was always having core engineers like electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, civil engineers. So that is probably why they started with those things and then slowly branched off into the other departments. And as you know, electronics revolution came, IT revolution came. You have those new, branches opening up. So probably that is the reason. But it's very difficult to exactly say why it's not there today. Historically, it's not been there, so some of the institutes decided not to have it. In fact, IIT Kharagpur, I mean, about a decade or decade and a half ago, set up a medical science technology kind of department where they use mechanics. So they probably named it differently, but essentially they do the same work as what Professor Prasad pointed out in applied mechanics of IT materials.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Shravani, do you have anything to say?
Yes. Since I am not from engineering background, so I don't have much expertise in this area. But what I think that maybe because suppose you are trying to find some funding from ACRB or DST or something, so they are what I feel they are now looking for more application oriented work. So it's a little difficult to get a funding purely from work which is purely based on theoretical work. So and there is a surge in kind of things like Make in India or something. So that's why I think government also supporting the kind of prototype making or this type of things. So that's why I think maybe there are new departments on applied mechanics.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shravani, for sharing your perspective. Now, I think it's 11:20, like we have only 10 minutes left for this webinar. So we'll probably have one last question. And if there is no question in the comment chat from the participants, then Nilotpal will ask the question.
Thank you so much, Rohit. I actually had a follow-up question to Dr. Mondal because she mentioned about the funding and also how research is being expected to do more application-oriented work in today's scenario. So in that case, what keeps you optimistic about doing deep theoretical work in today's world where, for example, artificial intelligence can give you fast results compared to years of theoretical work, at least looking from an outsider perspective. I think this is an important thing to address because I'm sure even in our audience today, there are researchers who really like doing theoretical work, mathematical work. So it would be great if you could throw some light on how to keep up the motivation in doing that kind of work.
Okay, so what I think that if we all started doing application oriented work, then maybe I think we'll be like we'll be involved in technical jobs. So understanding of basic fundamental is also important. So if you want to explore or explain things why this is happening or what is the reason behind this scenario, then you have to delved into bit deeper. So that's why I think it's important to understand the fundamental physics or chemistry, and theoretical research is still relevant in this perspective.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mondal. That was really great from your end. Yeah, I think we had a lot of interesting discussions today. And I would now like to pass the baton over to Vaishali, who would conclude today's session.
Thank you, Nilothal. I would first like to take this opportunity to thank the panel members for their time and giving us insightful discussions about the mechanics and how India is shaping up with respect to mechanical engineering and its applications. With respect to different streams of Make in India and other schemes of India for developing indigenous equipments and devices in clinical care, and thereafter more applications on the mechanical background with the implications of mechanical engineering. So I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the moderators, the webinar team and social media team specifically from CSIRO platform, who have put great efforts for this webinar to make it a big success. And also it would be great to extend a vote of thanks to the wonderful audience who were able to make most out of this interesting webinar and gather most information from the respected panel members. So a big thank you for attending the event. And I would also like to take this opportunity to bring your attention to CSIRO platform, which you will be able to follow using different social media platforms lined on the left side of the screen. And we would also like to bring your attention that we are holding an online recruitment drive which was held in June 2025. And following this, the interesting event, which is an in-person annual recruitment drive event, is scheduled for September 2025, which is going to be held both in Europe and in US. So please keep tuned to the upcoming notifications on the CSIRO website and enroll for the in-person annual event. There are more discussions lined up for the in-person interactions, and we are keen to bring more interactive seminars and discussions which will be beneficial to the STEM diaspora in US who are trying to travel back to India and planning their move on the academic and the industrial front. Thank you to the respective speakers as well for the time, and a very big thank you. And closing this session, good morning to the people in US and good evening to the people in India. Thank you.
Thank you for giving us an opportunity. Thanks a lot to the entire CSIRO team.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. It's happy. It was nice to interact with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you,
Dr.
Dr. Kaushik. Thank you, Dr. Patnaik.
Bye-bye.
And
Thank
you,
you.
Manu.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, participants, for joining. So I'm going to close this session because the webinar has ended. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.